we don't want to have to show panic. We're not going to show panic. And that's exactly what I did. And I was very open, whether it's to Woodward or anybody else. It's just another political hit job. But whether it was Woodward or anybody else, you cannot show a sense of panic.
He knew how dangerous it was. And while this deadly disease ripped through our nation, he failed to do his job on purpose. It was a life and death betrayal of the American people.
All right, today the topic du jour of the Bob Woodward book. Will it last? There have been other books. There have been other issues that were supposed to bring down the president, but they never quite achieved much more than about a week of discussion, if that, back and forth. Maybe my next guest will put this in some perspective here. Siraj Hashmi of the Washington Examiner. Siraj, very good to have you back. What do you make of the fallout of this? The only reason why I think it might have a little bit more staying power to it is that the conversations with the president were apparently taped. So there's a record there. But your thoughts?
Right. So the president did speak to Bob Woodward on the record. And some of the excerpts that you saw in the Washington Post, you can actually hear President Trump saying that he always tried to downplay it. However, there is some value to be had when downplaying say a certain level of crises, because as President Trump said, you don't want to grip the nation in fear and panic. But in terms of, this book coming out in September and this conversation being had in early February, I believe it was February 7th, this is sort of tainted by, being in the political season. We're less than 2 months away from the presidential election, and it's looking a lot like this is done for political reasons rather than serving the public interest. And as Bob Woodward claims in his book, his summary is that President Trump is not the right man for the job. I think he says in quotes that he's the wrong man for the job.
Yeah, right at the end, right? Sir, very quickly, though, I do want to know, there's a lot of stuff that Joe Biden goofed, what he knew about the severity of this. If you're going to go back and criticize the president, I know he doesn't have access to the same information. A lot of Democrats have argued that point. But it is safe to say both men early on, at least in some of their early public pronouncements, seemed to minimize this. It's obviously hurting the president more, but is it an issue that the president is likely to pound against Joe Biden as well? Like we're both in this together, so to speak. What do you think?
Yeah, there is some, President Trump doesn't really have much to go on in terms of hitting Joe Biden based on the comments he made to Bob Woodward in a book. With respect to, say, the travel ban that President Trump implemented against China in late January and Biden criticizing him for that, there have obviously been studies in April, I believe, that showed that most of the coronavirus cases in New York came from Europe. And President Trump didn't implement a shutdown of travel from Europe until early March, around just before the pandemic was declared by the World Health Organization. So there doesn't seem to be enough focus on that. And the fact that President Trump, if he wanted to be a little bit more serious about it, he would have